We live in an era of great informational confusion, where the internet is invaded by theories of all kinds, often without foundation. In this sea of information, it is easy to lose sight of what truly deserves our attention and an in-depth analysis. Today, we want to bring to light a question that goes far beyond simple conspiracy theories. The possibility that the Sister Lucia who appeared publicly from 1967 onwards was not the true visionary of Fatima. We are not talking about a simple supposition or a theory pulled out of thin air, but a scientific investigation, documented, that involved forensic experts, facial analysts, graphologists, and behavioral specialists. How was it possible to prove a fact of such historical and religious gravity? And above all, why would the true Sister Lucia dos Santos have been replaced precisely at the most crucial moment in the history of Fatima? If these topics are close to your heart, help us spread them. A like can do so much, as well as your subscription to the channel. Thank you from the heart. The story begins with a 10-year-old girl named Lucia dos Santos. In 1917, she began to receive, together with her little cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marto, mysterious visions in a place called Cova da Iria, near Fatima, in Portugal. These supernatural experiences attracted the attention of thousands of people, culminating in an extraordinary event in October of the same year, when a crowd of about 70,000 people witnessed the famous miracle of the sun. Lucia, unlike her two little cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marto, who died in the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918 and 1919, survived and became the only living witness of those extraordinary events. But not only. For 40 years, from 1917 to 1957, Sister Lucia dos Santos maintained a firm and coherent position regarding the message of Fatima. She insisted especially on some fundamental elements: the necessity of the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the importance of the devotion of the first 5 Saturdays of the month, and the revelation of the so-called Third Secret of Fatima, which was to be divulged in 1960. Her last free meeting with people outside the monastery took place in 1957, when she received a visit from Father Agustin Fuentes. During that meeting, Sister Lucia pronounced words of fire about imminent punishments and the perdition of souls. Declarations that created a real earthquake in Vatican circles. If you too, like us, believe in the warnings of Fatima, write in the comments. Our Lady of Fatima, save the world. Amen. After that meeting, Sister Lucia literally disappeared from the public scene for an entire decade. When she reappeared in 1967, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the events of Fatima, something had changed. Some attentive observers noticed differences in her physical appearance that went beyond the normal signs of aging. It is in this context that the work of Dr. Peter Chainovsky fits in, an American academic who in 2018 decided to systematically investigate these doubts. Chainovsky created an organization dedicated exclusively to the scientific analysis of the question, collecting photographic material, written documents, and audio recordings to submit them to the judgment of independent experts. The team assembled by Chainovsky included specialists in different disciplines: facial recognition experts, forensic odontologists, professional graphologists, and behavioral analysts. Each of these professionals examined the material related to their area of expertise using modern techniques of comparative analysis. The results were surprising. The facial recognition specialists identified significant structural discrepancies between the faces of the first Sister Lucia and that of the second. The biometric measurements revealed differences in cranial proportions, in ocular spacing, and in profile characteristics that could not be explained by the normal aging process. From the report of Dr. Robert Bennett, it is established that there is a possibility of 1 in 13 million that the face of Sister Lucia of 1967 corresponds to that of Sister Lucia photographed years before. From the odontological analysis of Dr. Ruud Karsten, it emerges that both nuns were a prosthesis. But there are anatomical differences in the facial profile that cannot be explained by dental changes alone. The second Sister Lucia, in fact, has a protruding lower jaw that the first Sister Lucia did not have. According to the forensic graphology expert Bart Baggett, the handwriting differences are not the result of typical muscle movement diminishments related to old age diseases, or simply the number of years elapsed between reliable samples. It reads that while many traits and letters are consistent with class characteristics, the overall rhythm, baselines, and connections are not consistent with the same writer. All these elements have been documented and made public through the website of Chinovsky's organization, Sister Lucia Truth, where anyone can examine the technical analyses and the photographic comparisons. But beyond the scientific evidence, there exists a testimony of particular gravity, coming from a very authoritative source. Malachi Martin was an Irish religious who had reached positions of great responsibility within the Vatican. His competence in ancient languages and his knowledge of Middle Eastern cultures had made him a precious consultant for ecclesiastical leaders. During the 60s, Martin worked as personal assistant to Cardinal Augustine B., one of the most influential cardinals of the Second Vatican Council. In this privileged position, Martin had access to reserved information of the highest level, and was among the few to know the content of the Third Secret of Fatima, when in 1960 it had to be decided whether to reveal it or not to the world. In the introduction he wrote for the book Fatima Priest, by Father Nicholas Gruner, Martin made statements that go far beyond simple speculations. According to his testimony, in the last decades of the 20th century, there would have been a deliberate plan to alter and distort the original meaning of the message of Fatima. The most shocking part of his revelations concerned directly the figure of Sister Lucia. Martin affirmed that the true visionary had been isolated, that false documents had been spread in her name, and that at least on one occasion a substitute had been used to impersonate her publicly. These accusations, coming from a person who had worked at the highest levels of the Vatican hierarchy, add considerable weight to the scientific evidence collected by independent researchers. But the fundamental question remains: what could have been the motivation for such a complex and risky operation? The answer must be sought in the historical context of the 60s, when the Catholic Church was going through a phase of profound transformation. The Second Vatican Council had introduced radical changes in the pastoral approach, privileging dialogue with the modern world, compared to the traditional messages of conversion and penance. The problem was that the true Sister Lucia represented an insurmountable obstacle to this new direction. For 4 decades, she had maintained a rigid and immutable position regarding the specific requests that had been formulated during the apparitions. The authentic religious had demonstrated several times that she was not willing to compromise. In her private letters, she had not hesitated to express criticism towards ecclesiastical authorities who had not followed up on the requests that she considered of divine origin. Her influence on the faithful was enormous, being considered the only living witness of supernatural events of worldwide scope. Simply silencing such an important figure would not have been sufficient. The ecclesiastical leaders needed not only her silence, but also her public support to the new interpretations they were promoting. They had to demonstrate that the visionary herself approved the doctrinal and pastoral changes in progress. And it is exactly what they obtained with the new Sister Lucia. The figure who reappeared in the 60s began to provide statements completely different from the previous ones. She confirmed that the religious ceremonies already celebrated had been sufficient, even if they did not meet the requirements originally specified. She declared that the secret message had been fulfilled and that there were no longer any particular threats or urgencies. This radical change of position provided the Vatican authorities with the legitimization they needed for their new interpretation of the events of Fatima. The prophetic message, with its apocalyptic tones and its specific requests, was transformed into a generic invitation to prayer and peace, perfectly compatible with the post-conciliar pastoral approach. Some researchers have hypothesized that the substitution may have occurred in successive phases. A first substitute could have been introduced already in the 50s, still maintaining, however, some elements of the original message. When even this figure proved problematic, she would have been replaced by a second person, completely aligned with the new ecclesiastical directives. Other scholars believe instead that the operation was put into action immediately after the last documented meeting of the true Sister Lucia in 1957. Her declarations, in fact, created alarm in Vatican circles. Father Fuentes was even removed from the position of postulator for the beatification of Jacinta and Francisco. What we have seen today shows us how urgent it is to pray for our church and for the world. If you too feel this urgency, write in the comments your most important prayer intention at this moment. Let us unite our voices to Our Lady of Fatima, because only through prayer can we hope that truth triumphs.